This is the ESPN 1080.com Insider Show, the show that takes you inside your teams with Eric Lopez, Andrew Melnick, and Jason Collette as they covered tonight Orlando Magic, Tampa Bay Rays, and all of the Sunshine State teams as well as across the nation. It's the ESPN 1080.com Insider Show with your host. Here's Eric Lopez. And good morning, Orlando, and all across the nation here as we are live here on ESPN 1080. The team, Eric Lopez alongside Magic and NBA insider Andrew Melnick. Andrew, how's it going?
Pretty good Sunday morning.
It's always a nice Sunday morning, my friend. And then, of course, our Rays and MLB insider, Jason Collette. Your morning not as good, right?
No. Son has a middle ear infection, so I am functioning on about 2 hours of sleep and really dragging through this morning, not to mention the Rays won one game this week. So professionally and personally, not a good week.
I was going to say, is that ear infection as a result of the Rays play? Or that?
It's a result of too much time in the pool yesterday over at a friend's house.
Fair enough.
You are wearing your brand new Wago G big game shirt, though.
Yes, love getting the Rays gear. The Wago G shirt's pretty sweet. Unfortunately, he did do as well as I said after the last week's show. I said he was going to come back and bring the Rays back, and he shut the Marlins down, and then that's pretty much been the week for the Rays.
Well, we'll get into that a little bit later on the show. Coming up on the show, we'll talk about we'll have the NBA Finals preview here coming up shortly. Heat, Mavericks, LeBron and Dirk. Who needs it more? We'll talk, of course, the Rays. What has gone wrong? Are the Rays in trouble? As well as the Buster Posey play injury this week. Did Major League Baseball change the rules at home plate collisions? And then college baseball, one of the more under a sports NCAA tournament selection show tomorrow. Why isn't it more covered? We'll get into that topic as well. But let's begin with you, Andrew. The NBA Finals are set. The Miami Heat and Dallas Mavericks both not easily, but winning in 5 games in their respective conference finals. And now we'll have 6 weeks off to play game 1. Well,
yeah, I wouldn't call it easy. I mean, both teams win 4-1, but we had some good, close, highly contested games. And you're right. Now we've got about 3 weeks off. They'll actually begin play Tuesday night. In Miami, Game 1, 9 p.m. Over on ABC and on this station as well.
That's right.
It's going to be interesting. No one's playing better than Dallas, I don't think. Since the way they've rebounded since blowing that 23-point lead in the first round against Portland, and then sweeping the Lakers, beating the Thunder in 5. No one's playing better than them. I don't know if anyone's had a playoffs like Dirk has in quite some time. But I think the big problem for Dallas, I know most people will probably agree, they don't have the horses to go man-to-man against the Heat. At least I don't think so, and we're going to have to see a lot of zone.
Jason, give me your thoughts as you saw the conference finals wrap up. The Heat beat the Bulls in 5, come there, the miraculous comeback in Game 5 at the end there. Both teams really did. Dallas taking care of the Thunder. What was your thoughts overall?
It was a nice perspective for me. I was actually in Chicago this week for business, so I got to see the Chicago fans' reactions firsthand from my hotel on Thursday night. I got stuck up in Chicago on my trip, so I had to stay an extra night. And I was down in the hotel bar lobby working, and there was probably 15, 20 people around the TV watching that game. And, celebrating when they were up 12 with 4 or 5 minutes left. And then LeBron hits that 3 to tie it up, and the whole place went silent. And then the next bucket, and everybody just started freaking out and screaming at the television. And I just couldn't help but laugh to watch that kind of reaction. And then they all just, left the bar at once. I was the only guy in the bar 30 seconds after the game was over. So to see that kind of fan reaction was neat. But it's going to be a very interesting series. My whole thing, I think, for me, it comes down to, as Andrew was just saying, Jason Kidd versus Dwayne Wade, I don't know how you can play defense there. It's just one of these things. That's an awful matchup for him. Dwayne Wade could have a field day there. But it's going to be nice to see the point guard play. I mean, Jason Kidd, even at an advanced age, is still playing some very good basketball.
And certainly, of course, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, the big hoopla this summer, they joined together along with Chris Bosh, and they've reached the finals. Let's listen now to LeBron James talk about playing with one of his closest friends, D. Wade.
We knew. We're 2 unselfish guys, and we knew for the better of the team that we was going to make it work. It was just going to take time. So to be having this success so far, got a lot of work to do still. We're not taking that for granted, but to have this success so far in the postseason with one of your best friends, it means a lot.
Jason, are you surprised that it's worked for the Heat to this point, getting to the finals? Did you expect this when they got together?
Initially, yes, and then after watching the first third of the season, no. It seems to be you couldn't share the rock around that much, but they've made it work. Early on, they were either they were beating up against teams under 500. They had a very good record against teams under 500 and an awful record against teams above 500. But as you get more of that time together, build more of that chemistry, now they're clicking and getting it done. Obviously, they're in the finals.
Yeah, they struggled with the Boston, Chicago's, the Orlandos throughout the year. But at the beginning of the year, I wouldn't have said it'd be this easy for the Heat. But if you told me the Celtics would get this old, this quick, the Magic would fall apart and blow up their team, and their biggest competition would be a Chicago Bulls team that plays great defense, rebounds the ball, but really only has one guy that can score, then yeah, I would have told you they were a shoo-in.
A shoo-in. That's pretty good. Of course, we saw the Heat, Andrew, maybe at their worst early in the year when they were still learning to play each other. The night before Thanksgiving, the Magic beat them, and then we saw them at one of their best and one of the great performances of the year. LeBron James, 51 points. A couple months ago, beating the Magic. So we've seen the Heat at the highs and the lows. What was the turning point for the Heat, would you say, where you figured, okay, this is a team now that is going to be reckoned with?
Well, really, even that LeBron 51-point game, they almost blew that one. And Magic had a shot to tie that game at the end of the game. No lead is safe with that team, whether they're down 20 or up 20, it feels like sometimes. And a team like the Magic, who takes so many threes, can shoot themselves back into a game. We saw them shoot themselves out of an entire playoff series earlier, but that's a different story. You mentioned that Thanksgiving game. That's when the Heat really got hot right after that. They just started reeling off wins. I think they went through a stretch 3 or 4 weeks where they only lost 2 games after they lost the Magic. And interestingly enough, both of those losses came against the Dallas Mavericks.
And then that's the question, of course, as we get into this matchup. Dallas and Miami, of course, they played in the 2006 NBA Finals. The Heat won in 6 games, coming back from a 2-0 deficit. But not really. I don't think that really plays a role in this series at all. I mean, sure, you got Dirk and Jason Terry from those teams in Dallas, Wade and Haslam, but not.
That's it.
That's pretty much really it.
Yeah,
There's a couple different teams. Miami has the home court. You mentioned Dallas won the 2 regular season games. But that was super early in the year. And as the Heat had proven in the last couple of rounds, they lost all 3 games to the Bulls. Didn't really matter when it comes to the playoffs. 2 completely different series. Give me a couple of keys to look forward to in this series.
Well, first of all, I talked about the Mavs going zone. This is going to be the series they miss Caron Butler. I mean, we're not talking about a lockdown defender. We're talking about a guy who can at least maybe keep up for at least a little while with a LeBron James, a Dwayne Wade. This is where they're going to miss him. And they're going to have to play zone. They didn't necessarily have to against the Thunder because, yes, they had 2 great threats. As much as, Russell Westbrook got destroyed by the media throughout that series, he's still a great player, great threat to score every time. Still, though, as good as Kevin Durant is, as good as Russell Westbrook is, these guys aren't LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. I mean, these guys can't get to the rim with the ease that they can. But if you want to know a couple of keys, they're going to have to keep Tyson Chandler out of foul trouble because this is the guy that's going to have to cover Chris Bosh because the Heat have started going to that lineup that we all knew if they were healthy they were going to use with Dwayne Wade, Mike Miller, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Udonis Haslem. They've started using that lineup. It's been extremely effective. So Tyson Chandler is going to have to stay out of foul trouble. And the biggest key is the Mavericks turned the ball over a decent amount in the season. I think they had the 10th most turnovers in the league on average. They didn't do that against the Thunder. They knew the Thunder had a more athletic team. They didn't let the Thunder get out in transition. And we know if the Heat get out in transition, it's over for you. I mean, with those athletes they have. So if they can protect the ball and, play an effective zone, they're going to be right in that series and have a chance to win.
Absolutely. Talk about Rick Carlisle, Eric Spoelstra, first NBA Finals for those 2 head coaches.
Well, Rick Carlisle, he's been in a lot of big games. And we saw him kind of get, I think, caught a little bit of a screw job in Detroit when he had done a very good job and they canned him because they had the opportunity to bring in Larry Brown. He's been a very good coach. I mean, he's been maligned the last few years, and maybe rightfully so with all their first-round exits. But these are guys who really haven't been here before. I mean, we know Eric Spoelstra a little bit here because he's from that Pat Riley school, Jeff Van Gundy, Stan Van Gundy. We've heard Stan talk about him. They're good friends off the court. So it's new for both of them, but you got to think Rick Carlisle's got the edge there because he's done it before. He's been there before. Eric Spoelstra before the season, his only time in the playoffs was that 4-1 first-round loss to Boston.
That's the 2011.
Yep. Jason, let's Dirk Nowitzki and LeBron James, both MVP winners in their careers. 2 of the 7 players in the history of the NBA that have an MVP award that have not won an NBA title. I don't know if those are, did you know there?
That means they can't even be Hall of Famers because you have to win a title before you're a Hall of Famer.
Of course, right, sure. who needs this title more? Who needs this one more? Dirk or LeBron? This was brought up on Tuck and Oni on Friday. I was on to talk about it. What's your thoughts on that?
I think public perception is going to be LeBron because of everything that happened. You put the Heat together, and he's the face of it. The polarizing figure that he was to the sport for fans that the Cavs fans and whatnot. I think he needs it more. From a series perspective, when I look at this, if I'm just strategizing for this, at least the Heat have the option of basically letting Dirk do what Dirk needs to do in a game and can focus on everybody else. Where with the Heat, you have to pick your poison. Are you going to let LeBron go off? Are you going to let Dwayne Wade go off? That's where I think the biggest challenge here. And if you're going to ask me to pick a winner of this series, I'm going to say it's the Heat in 5 or 6 games because it's just a bad defensive matchup for the Mavs.
Now we saw what Chris Bosh did in the last round. You got to stop him. He woke up from his, season and playoff-long slump. For media and public perception, you're absolutely right. LeBron James needs it more. But if you want to go with having who's going to get a title in their career, Dirk's about to turn 33. He's got a 38-year-old Jason Kidd as kind of his tag team partner. This could be the last chance for them. And the Heat, Dwayne Wade is 29. He's the oldest of those 3, but they're locked up for the next 4 or 5 years together. They're going to have more opportunities. This might be the last chance for Dirk in Dallas.
They weren't even expected to get here. Not a lot of people picked them. A lot of people thought they would lose in the first round of Portland.
Yes, I was one of them. And then I picked them to lose to the Lakers.
I did too.
You did hear me last week pick them to beat the Thunder. So
yes.
I'm 1 for 3.
1 for 3.
So
hey, that's
far.
a good batting average, right, Jason? That's a good average.
333 is awesome.
I agree. I think Dirk needs this more. I think the basketball fan, his legacy is very interesting. He's getting a lot of hype right now, comparing himself to Larry Bird, which I think is a little out there. It's a little too a bit of a stretch.
Big white guys that can shoot, so automatically they're
sure,
player.
That's right.
To me, with Dirk, though, all I can remember was when he was drafted and how Don Nelson was laughed at for everything they did to get him, and to see where he's brought his career from. Everybody's like, what are you doing all, giving up that to get some tall kid from Germany that nobody's ever seen playing? And look, he's been a beast all year long.
No, absolutely. I think he needs the title more. Dirk needs it more because you're right, because his legacy is going to be based on this. If he loses this series, he'll be like, well, he's a great player, but he lost twice to the Heat in the series. And he lost in the first round of Golden. He's got some baggage. If he wins
the
this
first round
series,
last year.
Lost in the first round. But if he wins this series, he gets elevated. He beat the mighty Heat. So it's a big series for him. LeBron is going to get criticized no matter what. If he wins this series, well, yeah, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. If he loses, he lost the series. He's 0 for 2. But I agree with you. He's going to get more opportunities with this team.
He's in a no-win situation. He's either, they should have won it. Oh, my God, how did they lose it with all that talent? He's definitely in a no-win situation.
All right, give me your picks, and then I want to hit up a couple quick topics in the NBA involving this series. But, Jason, what is your prediction for the Mavs and the Heat, and who's your winner of the series and MVP?
I'm going to go Heat in 6 with Dwayne Wade as the MVP.
Go Heat in 6 with LeBron James as the MVP.
I will go with the Heat, although I think Dallas can win this series. I don't think it's an upset if Dallas wins this series. I think it's not. Actually, it's more competitive series than people, more evenly matched series than people.
I think it'll be competitive, but I still think Dallas wins. I think you got to call it at least a mild upset. They definitely can win the series.
They got a good depth, more depth than the Heat. Their bench is going to be the key. J.J. Barea, Peja Stojakovic, can they continue that production? They're going to have to. That's the question. Can they? I don't know. I think the Heat will do a good job shutting down their perimeter. I will say that this is the best defense Dallas has seen in the playoffs. Would you not? Yeah. Would you agree with that, Andrew? By far?
Absolutely. And we saw the Heat in person, outside of those 2 blown second-half leads against the Magic. When we saw them, they did a fantastic job closing out on the Orlando shooters, and it's kind of a similar thing with Dallas. It's Dirk and a bunch of shooters.
Yeah, and so I think while Dirk's going to be tough, nobody can guard Dirk. The Heat do have people that will give him some trouble. I think Udonis Haslem will spend a lot of time on him. LeBron, I think, could see him go. That's been the big talk, how much you're going to see LeBron. I don't think it's going to be as much as people think, just because I think the Heat will go to Haslem, a little Joel Anthony. You're going to see 3 or 4 guys guarding LeBron.
We've seen Chris Bosh do it before.
Chris Bosh a little bit as well. The problem Dallas has, they'll probably put Sean Marion on LeBron. First of all, I don't think LeBron's really sweating that.
Don't tell him too short, though. Sean Marion did a very good job against Kevin Durant, but it's a different kind of player.
Different animal. And then the other question is, as the question was 5 years ago, who's guarding Dwayne Wade?
That's the big problem. You're looking at Jason Terry. Jason Kidd.
That is why I will go with Heat in 6, Dwayne Wade. And LeBron, co-MVP. The media completely cops out and gives them both share MVP.
Oh, I won't like that one bit, but I could see it happening.
You like that? All right.
One thing we keep saying, who's going to guard Dirk? And, it's a fair point. He's been great. But, like you just brought up, who's going to guard LeBron James and Dwayne Wade? I mean, they have the same problem on the other side.
Big problems. And by the way, Dirk's probably going to have to cover Chris Bosh on the other end.
Yeah, and he has not historically done a good job against Bosh.
No. So Dallas got some defensive issues there, but it should be a good series. Heat Mavericks starting Tuesday night, 9 Eastern. You'll hear it here on ESPN 1080. Couple quick thoughts. All right. So if this player averaged 23 points a game, shot 35% from the field, 23% from the three-point line, and averaged nearly 4 turnovers a game, would you say that's a good or bad series?
Well, if you look right at it, you have to say bad. If you watch it in the context of the game, I wouldn't call it that bad.
Those numbers were Derrick Rose's stats in the conference finals, all below his normal average. Yet the media, I haven't heard anybody say, hey, he had a bad series. I heard he has no help, which was kind of funny because before the Heat Bulls series started, a lot of people that picked the Bulls said he has way more talent than the Heat. They have more depth. But it's a no-brainer. They have all the size. The Heat can't match it. And now after the series is over, well, all of a sudden he has no help. Yet a year ago, when LeBron got a triple-double in Game 6 against the Celtics and were eliminated, he quit. And he was crushed for it. Explain it to me.
A couple differences here. Derrick Rose doesn't have a big mouth. First of all, doesn't constantly make comments that are, well, I won't even be nice. We'll say stupid. Doesn't necessarily make comments like that. And he's 22 years old. I mean, he's younger than LeBron James. He hasn't necessarily been there before. He's been in the playoffs the last 2 years and played pretty well, but he hasn't been there before. But I think if you watch in the context of the game, there's a few plays, and especially down the stretch in the last game, where the Bulls are throwing the ball around on offense. Derrick Rose gets the ball back with 3-4 seconds on the shot clock. It has nothing else to do. Has to force up a bad three, has to try and get to the hoop, has to do this. And I think the way the Heat defended him, switching guys constantly, kept those Heat defenders fresh. While Derrick Rose is sitting there having to carry that team. I mean, I said it all year long. I thought Orlando could beat Chicago. I thought a lot of teams could have beaten Chicago in the playoffs because that's their score. Luol Deng, too inconsistent. Carlos Boozer, he's always kind of shrunk in those big game situations. We saw him get dominated by Chris Bosh for this entire series. Joakim Noah completely disappeared. Kyle Korver, all he can do is shoot, and he couldn't shoot in this series. So I think you're right. Derrick Rose did not play well. I've argued all year long he shouldn't have been the MVP. You know that. I had LeBron James, Dwight Howard, Dirk all ahead of him on my personal ballot, which means nothing. I don't have a vote or anything. But
hey, it's nice to say, right? Yeah, there you go.
That's not the point. But I think Rose did, I wouldn't say he shrunk. I wouldn't say he was terrible. But he didn't play nearly as well as he did during the regular season.
Of course, that's Andrew Melnick, NBA and Magic Insider here on 1080. Jason Collette, our Rays and MLB Insider. And that's a good thing because coming up, following this break, are the Rays in trouble? Jason will have the answer to that, as well as should Major League Baseball change the rules when it comes to home plate collisions? We'll find out. You're listening to ESPN1080.com Insider Show here on ESPN 1080, The Team.
This is where great moments happen.
Going to be fielded by Lorenzo Neal at the 25. Pitches it back to Wycheck. He throws it across the field to Dyson.
He's got something.
30,
He's
40,
got something.
50.
He's got it.
40,
He's got it.
20, 10.
He's got it.
End zone. Touchdown Titans. There are no flags on the field. It's a miracle. Tennessee has pulled a miracle.
ESPN 1080, The Team. AutoZone.
How would you like your auto parts store to pay you to shop with them?
Get in the zone.
At AutoZone, we reward loyal customers through our free AutoZone Rewards Card program. And right now, register your AutoZone Rewards membership online and receive a 20% bonus towards your next reward. And get a free can or bottle of any Coke product, too. But hurry, this offer ends July 11th. So go to AutoZoneRewards.com today.
Get in the zone. AutoZone.
You gotta love a filet mignon. It's sumptuous, it's tender, and heck, it just sounds delicious. Go ahead, say it with me. Filet mignon. But there's something more to love about a filet that you might not know. It's lean. It's one of the leanest cuts out there. Surprised? Well, I got a lot of surprises for you. 28 more, in fact, because there are 29 cuts of lean beef, and you can learn to love them all at beefitswhatsfordinner.com.
Funded by the Beef Checkoff.
It's the Leaderboard, Mondays 6 to 8 on ESPN 1080 WHOO. This is where the pros come to talk.
Hi, this is Boo Weekley.
Hi, this is Jim Furyk.
Hi, this is Rocco Mediate.
Hi, this is Trevor Immelman.
Hi, this is Zach Johnson.
Hi, this is Woody Austin.
Where the pros come to talk about their game. Live from Celebration Town Tavern.
Hi, this is Corey Paven, the 2010 Ryder Cup captain. Listen to the Leaderboard, Monday evenings, 6 to 8 p.m., right here on ESPN.
Presented by Carl Black Chevrolet Buick GMC.
Live from Progressive. Flo here. Today we're talking to newlyweds.
Hi, my husband and I are combining our policies, and my mother-in-law says we can save with Progressive.
Well, with online, homeowners, and multi-car discounts, saving on car insurance is easy.
So you're saying she's right?
I'm saying get used to it.
Get great savings and more at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and its affiliates, Mayfield Village, Ohio. Discounts not available in all states. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Come to the forest. It's a place not so far away where you don't have to mow the lawn or babysit. Ask your parents to take you to where the other you lives. But first, stop by discovertheforest.org, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Rose on the wing, throws up a prayer, and the ball taken by Miller. And that's the ball game. What a comeback for the Miami Heat. They'll advance to the NBA championship for the second time in franchise history. An unbelievable comeback for Miami as they win this ball game and take this series 4-1.
There you have it, the final moments of the Heat clinching the Eastern Conference Finals win over the Chicago Bulls. This is ESPN1080.com Insider Show. I'm Eric Lopez, your UCF insider, covers college football, college basketball, a little Magic as well. Speaking of Magic Insider and NBA insider Andrew Melnick joining alongside me, as well as Jason Collette, your Rays and MLB insider here on 1080. And one more thought before we get into baseball, because Jason, you were staring at Dwight Howard's poster here in the studio while we're
I'm almost as tall as he is.
So I will ask you this.
Give or take 8 inches.
So I figured you've had some good communication with Dwight as he's watching the Heat, and now he's going to start watching the NBA Finals. What do you think is going through his mind as he's about, of course, in his final year of his contract coming up next season? What do you think Dwight Howard's thinking?
What's the number for U-Haul? Honestly, it seems like we've been down this story before. I remember, I was a classroom teacher when Shaq left Orlando, and I was sitting in my classroom doing pre-planning when the news came out, and I threw something at the wall. I just have this scary feeling that I'm going to be doing the same thing again, even as a much less passionate Magic fan these days. But you see one guy and how much he means to the franchise. If he were to leave, it'd be devastating.
Yeah, I don't buy all this that he necessarily wants to leave. I mean, we even saw Rick Buger change his story the other day. Yeah. Now has Orlando the favorite to keep him. Oh. I don't think he wants to leave, but he wants to play with superstars because he knows that's his chance now. I mean, how is he going to be able to take down this Miami team? How is he going to be able to take down a Chicago team as the guy we just kind of ripped on a little bit, Derrick Rose, continues to get better, maybe get some more players, maybe they get out of that Boozer deal somehow, things like that. And it's going to be difficult, we won't call it impossible, to bring a Chris Paul, to bring a Darren Williams, someone like that we're talking about, that would make them competitive with those type of teams, turn them back into a contender. I think that's ultimately what he'd like to happen. He wants to be that guy that wins a title here. He wants to, Shaq left to go win a title somewhere else. Dwight Howard liked to be that guy that stayed here and did it. The problem is he might not have a chance to if he stays here.
That's what I'm saying. With the Heat now in the finals, these guys are going to be together. If you're Dwight, are you discouraged more because of that with what's around you? You're thinking maybe I need to go somewhere else and team up, or you don't think that plays a role?
I think you're a little discouraged because I think you're thinking if we had one more guy, we could have beaten that team. If I had one more guy with me, we were competitive with him every game, beat him twice with this squad. That's a team that has no answer for him. And if you're talking about a Chris Paul or Darren Williams, they don't have an answer for that position really either. At point guard, you put a LeBron or Dwayne Wade on them, then you're exposing yourself to those shooters. Yeah. So that's, that'd be not a very good matchup for Heat. That'd actually probably be their toughest matchup if they had to play a team like that. I think he's a little discouraged there. But when you lose in the first round to a team that you've consistently owned before this season, I mean, it swept them out of the playoffs last year, the Hawks I'm talking about, with the biggest margin of victory in the history of the playoffs total, winning by 25 points a game, it's hard not to be discouraged about that.
So that'll be one of the interesting storylines. All right, let's switch it over to baseball. Jason Collette, of course, our Rays insider, our MLB insider. We acquired you from 1040 in Tampa. You were out there for the Rays-Indians series. Rays losing one yesterday, as you described it off the air, was give it away, basically? Gave it away?
Yeah, it was yesterday's game. James Shields was on the mound coming off. He had 5 wins, 2 ERA. Give it 3 runs early, 2 runs in the first, and then a home run to Laporta, and then shut it down after that. And the Rays were 3-2 in the 8th. Reliever came on. First guy got on, and Taylor made double play, and Ben Zobrist booted it, which led to an even bigger inning. So it was an unfortunate loss, but it was a matchup issue. This was Carlos Carrasco on the mound for the Indians yesterday. If the Rays have 2 weaknesses offensively, it's when they face ground ball pitchers and when they face left-handed pitchers. Bad news, today another ground ball pitcher in Justin Masterson. Monday and Tuesday, 2 left-handed pitchers, and Derek Holland and C.J. Wilson. So the team is 3-7 in their last 10. They won 1 of the games they played this week. And they've got some pretty ugly matchups before going on a brutal road trip where they go from St. Pete to Seattle to Los Angeles to Baltimore, then back to Detroit to make up the rainout from this past week, and then get to come home where they face the Marlins and the Red Sox. So it's a really, really rough run of a schedule over the next few weeks that, frankly, could make or break the season.
They're 27-24 on the year, but Andrew, are they in trouble?
I think they're in a little bit of trouble. As we talked about last week, they have some flaws. New York has flaws. Boston has flaws. But as I keep talking about last week, that's the best division in baseball. I mean, we got Baltimore as an improved team, as we saw second half of this year. Toronto has got, well, an unreal player in Jose Bautista batting for them right now. Doesn't really get out too much anymore. Hits home runs, it seems like, every other at bat. It's a tough division for them to play in. And when you're talking about them going through this stretch with, Boston catching fire, it looked like New York was bouncing back until a couple losses to Seattle here. It's going to be extremely tough for them. If they were in the Central, if they were maybe in the West, I wouldn't feel the same way.
But, I mean, this team wasn't expected to do a lot by a lot of people. Did the fact that they've been playing, after that 0-6 start, they played some great baseball. Are they coming back to earth? Is that just what this could be?
Well, I mean, this is part of the issue. The American League's wide open this year. I'm looking at 9 of 14 teams that are at least 500 right now, which is rather unusual. I mean, when you're talking Seattle, we just mentioned Seattle taking 2 of the first 2 games from the Yankees. They're now half a game out of first place. This is a Seattle team that's traditionally 68 to 72 wins. So they're really doing well with that. But there were some false expectations set up when the Rays went on that really big win streak, 21 of 28. They were enjoying a very soft strength of schedule. They were playing in the American League Central, playing a lot of games against the White Sox and the Twins that have not been good teams this year. So that helped. Now they're getting into a tougher part of their schedule, and it's caught up with them a little bit. And again, we talked about this last week, where the offense has pretty much been the Matt Joyce show. Matt Joyce, if you're voting for All-Stars at home, get on there and vote for Matt Joyce. The guy's leading the American League in hitting. He's been carrying the Rays offense because Evan Longoria, until yesterday, Joe Madden threw him in the leadoff spot and said, I got to try something because you're just not getting it done right now, so we're going to throw you in the leadoff spot. And he responds with a single and a home run in his first 2 at-bats. But offensively, Ben Zobrist has struggled. B.J. Upton struck out something 5 or 6 times in a row at one point this week and has struggled there. And so there are things they need to fix, and they need to get it done before they go on this road trip. The road trip has really been tough when you make those West Coast road trips. The travel beats up on you. And then Seattle and Anaheim are places that the Rays have traditionally struggled. So this could be, again, a season-changing road trip.
Let's talk about, you saw the Cleveland Indians up close in person. 31-18 on the season. Best record in the American League right now. Mm-hmm. Are they legit?
They're legit at home. I'll give them that. They are the best offensive team in the American League at home. They dominate statistically at home. On the road, they're a different team. You saw on Friday night when I was there, David Price was able to shut them down with the help of some relief. So I like them at home a lot. They've had something like 8 or 9 walk-off wins at home. It's been an amazing run there. But they need to get it done on the road. And right now you look at the road, they're a 500 team at road. So you're 19-6 at home. You're 12-12 on the road. That's all you really need to ask for. Play 500 ball on the road and dominate at home, and they're getting that done. It helps, Detroit, they're already 6.5 up. Detroit has the talent. They're a more talented team, but Cleveland's getting the better results.
See, where I disagree with it, you think it's wide open in the American League. I think it's the Red Sox to lose, and I'll let Andrew chime in, Mr. Red Sox guy here, Massachusetts own. I think the Red Sox, they've been playing some great ball, 29 and 22, so all that distant memory of, what was that bad start they had before the year? Everybody was like
2-10.
2-10. Oh, it's gloom and gloom. No team has ever won the World Series. They're 29 and 22, though. They've turned it around, and to me, they have the best starting staff. Their offense is clicking. Adrian Gonzalez has been a monster.
He knew that was going to happen.
So why should I think anybody can beat the Red Sox in a best of 5 or best of 7?
I tell you, it's funny that Andrew's wearing a Patriots jersey because the Red Sox have been scoring like the Patriots lately. I mean, this week alone, coming at this time when we were doing the show last week, the Red Sox had a +5 run differential. They now have a +34 run differential. Yeah. So that's 29 more runs scored than the opponents this week, which speaks to what you were just saying about them being on fire.
Yeah, well, you knew that was going to happen. When everything goes wrong at the same time, you're thinking there's a good chance everything's going to go right at the same time at once. And, they're not the team that's winning 14-2 every game. They're not the team that started 2-10. I think they're probably closer to that team that's scoring 14 runs, but they're somewhere in between. And I think what Jason was saying with the Rays, they got off to a disastrous start, too, before they went on that 21-7 run. We were looking in the beginning of the year, we're thinking Tampa and Boston looking like two of the worst teams in the league. We knew that wasn't going to last. Both of them are somewhere in between, and I think they're both closer to the way they've been playing, lately, and the Rays are a little closer to that team that was making that 21 out of 28 game run than they were that team that got off to that awful start.
Well, absolutely. Of course, that's Andrew Melnick, your Magic and NBA insider, but a Red Sox fan, right? You're not afraid to admit you're a Red Sox fan here in Central Florida, are you, Andrew?
No, not at all.
He's got plenty of company.
He's got plenty. Of course, you got Jason Collette, our MLB and Rays insider. And now let's talk about the other big story in baseball this week. Buster Posey looks like out for the year in a massive collision in the Marlins game. That's been the big bugaboo. Buster Owning brought it up and a screen for it. Changing the rules in baseball. Home plate collisions. Should the catchers be more protected? Should runners be allowed to run over catchers? That's been the big topic. Jason, what's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on it is this is, some selective reporting by the national media. I mean, Friday night after the game, we were down in the clubhouse talking with Joe Madden for the post-game presser, and we asked him about this. And he said, and he brought up a good point, because on Friday night, for those who are watching the Rays game, you'll know that David Price nearly got decapitated by a maple bat. And Joe's been one of the more outspoken guys against those maple bats, the way they shatter and whatnot. But he compared it to, he said everybody's talking about Buster Posey and nobody's talking about this maple bat issue. And I think there's more cause for problem there. But with the Buster Posey situation, nobody made this much noise last year when Carlos Santana of the Indians nearly had his leg chopped off at home plate. Kelly Shopik with the Rays had his knee tore up 3 weeks into the season. Nobody said anything about these guys, but because it's the defending National League Rookie of the Year, all of a sudden it's a problem. And this, collisions at home plate have been going on for years. I mean, they even got Pete Rose to quote him this year today, of course, because he ran over Ray Fosse and ended his career like that. But it's one of these things where I think the story is being made more than it is because of who it was and not what happened, and that's my problem with it.
No, yeah, exactly. You're talking about a guy who came up last year and was the best hitter, the Rookie of the Year for the champs, for the world champions, a team that really couldn't hit at all in the beginning of the year. They brought him up to play first base. Actually, that lasted about a week before he went back to catcher, and they made the deal off to send Molina off to Texas. And so, yeah, they're going to make a bigger deal about it because this guy's looking like a legitimate superstar. But you're right. I mean, this has been happening forever, and this is the rules. It's not like anything illegal was done.
The very next night, Humberto Quintero of the Astros was taken out of home plate, and nobody said anything about it. It's because it's Humberto Quintero. So that's my problem with it. You can't start changing rules based on who's getting hurt. It needs to be the play itself, and if you've tolerated it now since, Rose plowed over Fosse in the 70 All-Star game, why is it now a problem 31 seasons later?
Yeah, exactly. You're talking Buster Posey, Joe Mauer, or someone who plays in New York or Boston. That's the only time a big deal is going to be made.
Then what do you do you'll think back when the Rays and Marlins were playing in 2009 when Akinori Iwamura got taken out at second base on a double play by Chris Coughlin. Do you now change that rule so you're thrown out of the game if you make too hard of a contact trying to break up a double play? I mean, once you open that Pandora's box at one position, then you have to start looking at the infield as well, and then we come down to playing basically Little League rules where you can't touch anybody.
Well, I'll go play devil's advocate for you. What about the argument that in every other part of baseball, minor leagues, college, you're not allowed to go head first into home plate. To collision. You have to slide or not collide with him. Major League Baseball is the only one where you're allowed to pretty much run over the catcher. What's your response to that argument?
Don't camp out on home plate. That's one way to get around it. You can position yourself better, but when these guys squat down on home plate, and that goes back to guys like Benson, Scioscia, they were infamous. Scioscia would squat on home plate, and you could not plow that guy over. Same thing with Bob Boone. It's amazing those guys never got hurt, and we're not talking about guys. I'm sure guys are a little bigger now these days than they were in the past. But still, it happened. It happens so rarely. Now when it happens, this is more about who got hurt and not how he was hurt. And again, that's my biggest beef with you. Got to be consistent with your reporting. And if you didn't report last year on Carlos Santana, one of the best young catchers in baseball, getting hurt, then how is this a problem when Buster Posey gets hurt?
Let's be honest. We're all upset because, like myself, I have Buster Posey in my fantasy league team, and it's not easy to find a catcher. I think this is what that's all about, don't you think?
I think I know all these guys play fantasy on the side. I know for a fact Buster Olney does. Maybe this is a whole Buster thing. That's why he's so upset.
I'm just saying, Buster's got to protect the Buster, man. That's right. So that's Jason Collette, your Rays and MLB insider, alongside Andrew Melnick, your Magic and NBA insider. I'm Eric Lopez, your UCF insider, and when we come back, we're going to focus on a couple of sports that normally doesn't get talked about. One sport in particular that, for some reason, doesn't get a lot of attention. Why that is, because UCF's going to make postseason in it for the first time in 7 years. And also, a sport that's become pretty huge in pay-per-views did not have a good night. We'll hit up on that. When we come back, you're listening to ESPN1080.com Insider Show here on ESPN 1080, The Team, your Orlando sports leader.
It's Tuck and O'Neill.
These guys were ragging on my hometown when they heard that I was doing this radio interview for a broadcast back in my hometown. And the boys gathered around their Wikipedia editing page and edited in my name as one of the notables from my hometown.
Long overdue.
So as I said, the Wikipedia police are in the lobby. They want to talk to you two clowns.
Keep it here for your afternoon drive with Tuck and O'Neill from 3 to 6 on ESPN 1080, The Team.
Getting farther faster means earning your MBA and more. That's why at DeVry University's Keller Graduate School of Management, we offer career advancement support with a career strategist to guide you, an expert writer to craft your resume, and one-on-one career coaching powered by Career Builder, so you can gain both the knowledge to move ahead and the know-how to get noticed. DeVry University's Keller Graduate School of Management. 2 Central Florida locations and online. Learn more at keller.edu.
Okay, kids, the campfire's out. Let's hit the road.
Dad, the fire's not out. It's still smoking.
No, close enough.
Come on, Dad, do your homework. If it's too hot to touch, then it's too hot to leave.
I knew that.
You're never too young to get your smoky on. If you see someone in danger of starting a wildfire, step in and make a difference. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires. The Scott Van Pelt Show.
Great score!
Weekday afternoons at 2 on WHO, Kissimmee, Orlando. ESPN 1080, The Team. Go behind the scenes with your favorite Magic guests Tuesday through Thursday at 5:05 p.m.
The studio. That's where the magic happens.
Only on ESPN 1080, The Team, and ESPN1080.com.
I'm Christy Yamaguchi. Health officials recommend influenza immunization for people at risk and for those who live with them or care for them. The American Lung Association asks, are you one of the faces of influenza? See your healthcare provider about getting vaccinated.
ESPN 1080, The Team.
Ah, yes. Brian Winterger on top of his game, our fine producer of that music. We didn't get a chance to, give tribute to the Macho Man Randy Savage last week when he passed away.
Yeah.
There you go, Jason. That's, of course, the theme song to Macho Man's theme. That's Jason Collette with the great Macho Man impersonation. You have another one you want to do there, Jason?
No, I don't.
That's Jason Collette, our Rays and MLB insider here on 1080, as well as Andrew Melnick, our Magic and NBA insider. I'm Eric Lopez, your UCF insider. And, of course, speaking of UCF, another UCF team will make postseason. Tomorrow, the selection show for college baseball will be announced. UCF will make the NCAA tournament for the first time in 7 years. Woohoo! Excitement, Jason's fired up. Other notes in the state, Florida State could be another national seed once again. Florida is another, again, will also be a top 5 national seed. Could be number 1 overall seed if they beat Vanderbilt today in the SEC tournament. So the state's pretty good in college baseball. My question to you, gentlemen, and I'll kick it off to the baseball insider himself, Jason Collette. Why doesn't more people in the national media and in public are as interested in college baseball as they are in, say, college basketball, for example?
You know, one, you've got to look for places to find coverage. You know, if you go on ESPN.com this morning, I challenge you to go find the stuff on college baseball. I found lacrosse quicker than I found the stuff on college baseball. That's a problem. I mean, you look in this state, you mentioned earlier, there are 6 Florida schools in the top 25 RPI right now. You've got FSU at the top, Florida, Miami, UCF, FIU and Stetson are all top 25. Then if you expand up to the top 100, you have FAU at 52, and way down there at 93, you have USF, which brings a lot of joy to my heart with that. So you've got a lot of good baseball in this state, but it's tough to find coverage. You can hear that you can find different things that you could barely see it on TV. If you want to try to find a game on TV, that's tough. I think I've seen more games online than I have on TV. So you really have to be a dedicated fan of college baseball, especially in this area, if you want to go find it, because it's tough to find.
Yeah, I mean, we have, maybe one total game a weekend between Florida, Florida State, UCF, Miami on FSN or Sun Sports or one of those channels. We have had the whole ACC and SEC tournaments this week on Sun Sports and FSN, so it's a little bit easier to find in the postseason. But one of the problems is, and I think, Jason, you brought this up too, there's a lot of guys who either leave almost immediately, leave early, or don't come at all. I mean, we have so many guys that just jump from high school straight to the draft, and we don't get the superstars, really. I mean, we've had, if you look around, we've got some very nice players, some very good players now. But if you look outside of Buster Posey, who we just touched on a couple of years ago playing for Florida State, there's not a whole lot of star power in baseball. I mean, we had, you're familiar with David Price. We had him blow up for Vanderbilt that one year. We had North Carolina when they had the twin studs of Andrew Miller, who's been a bust, and Daniel Bard. I mean, we had those teams, but for the most part, it doesn't have star power like college basketball, college football do.
I mean, there's one thing with college baseball. It's pretty comparable to the Florida State League as far as talent-wise, if you're looking to try to compare it. So Florida State League are maybe some of your better teams, Southern Leagues, your high A or double A teams. So that's the quality of baseball you're looking at. So if you're a big major league fan, you see the quality of stuff there, then you watch a college game. I know until recently, until they changed the bats, the college game I was not a fan of it, because I hated to see, you throw a really good inside fastball, jam a guy, and they still get a base hit to the opposite field when it would shatter a wood bat. But now with the new composite bats, I think it's neutralized the game to a more enjoyable level, so it's not just rocket shots all over the field these days.
Well, you mentioned there was one star you did not mention that I think was the biggest star in college baseball the last few years. You know who that is?
Who are we talking about?
Steven Strasburg.
Oh, of course.
Now, the reason I bring that up is because our fine producer, Brian Winiger, is a San Diego State grad. So I want to bring him in because he was there when Steven Strasburg pitched, because I think this is an interesting story he has for us. Tell me how Steven Strasburg's situation was handled at San Diego State from a marketability and as far as of a people being interested over there.
Yeah, this was one thing that really surprised me about San Diego State. Obviously, they don't have the best athletic program, but
not bad.
You had a guy who was pretty much the recruit, might have been the best recruit since Josh Hamilton, Ken Griffey Jr., and it was amazing. I mean, you have Tony Gwynn as the coach, and it was amazing how little around campus that guy was brought up.
I mean, that's a surprise. I mean, this is a guy who's going to be the number 1 pick in Major League Baseball, and yet the interest is not much there. Melnick, you went to Florida State, one of the top programs in college baseball. What's the kind of the flavor as far as Florida State baseball on campus over there?
Oh, it's different there. That's one school where it's pretty big. I mean, that's a clear number 2 focus, but behind
over
football.
Basketball.
Oh yeah.
Over basketball. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Baseball gets sells out often, gets a ton of kids there. Basketball doesn't. I mean, basketball this year did a little better, had a better team, a Sweet 16 team, but usually you've got Duke, North Carolina, maybe Florida. That's all you sell out in basketball. And baseball, when you look at it, when that Miami series is here, whether it's Miami or Clemson, there's a huge party outside on Saturday afternoon where they're giving away free drinks, free food, things like that. So it's totally different. That's a clear number 2. That's something we don't have at these other schools. You don't have that at UCF.
No.
We'd rather see, they'd rather see the basketball team do well. Florida throughout the 90s and the 2 national championships. I think people probably forget early mid-90s they were in a Final Four too in basketball. Basketball is a clear number 2 there. That's what they strive to be better at. They have pretty good baseball sport and a very good program, but Florida State's one of the few places where I think it's a clear number 2. You can find the games on TV there. Easy to get tickets to a game, cheap place. Students, it's all free for everybody. Unfortunately, they're changing their student IDs, so I don't know if it's going to be free for me anymore.
Way to announce that to the world there, Andrew. That's not going to help your cause. Jason, I mean, you and I are both UCF guys.
Yep.
Now, I would argue that about 10 years ago, UCF baseball was probably the number 2 sport in that campus. When Jake Bergman, they had a team that was a top 10 team that year. They just opened Jay Bergman Field. They were a team that might have had a shot to advance deep into the postseason. They lost in the regionals in South Carolina. It seems like 5-6 years ago, it kind of flipped. Baseball's obviously had their struggles. As mentioned, they haven't made the NCAA tournament since 2004. Men's basketball is gaining popularity. They got the new arena. Kirk kind of towards the end there had some good years, and then Donnie obviously this past year had a good year in the first year. So basketball's kind of overtaken baseball in UCF. Would you agree with that? Why is that?
I'd agree with that. I mean, full disclosure, I've been a basketball season ticket holder for 8 years. So, for me, I saw the switch when they got out of the old garage. I mean, that arena was atrocious. And, Jay Bergman Field, when it opened, was nice. Now I think it's in need of a major improvement. It's tough to get a good seat there. You're sitting in the grass. There's very little shade. So if you're there on a bad day, it's really hot. But the basketball they dumped the money into facilities. Even when Spiro was there, it was a very good quality game. I enjoyed the game from a strategical perspective. I think that's my biggest problem with the college baseball is because you see a more emphasis on a small ball. I am not a small ball type of guy. I hate seeing bunts in the second, third, and fourth inning. Bunts are for later in the game. Try to move the guy over with hit and runs and whatnot. But I think that from a strategical perspective, hardcore MLB guys like myself are turned off by the college game because it's a different style of play.
You can't imagine how many people in Tallahassee complain about the constant bunts. I mean, when you've got Buster Posey bunting to move a guy over to second when he's got an OBP of about 500 on the year.
You're
ridiculous.
You're giving away an out. I mean, if he gets a hit, big deal. It's still a single, but you're pretty much giving away out. And Bergman was terribly guilty of this. I haven't seen it as much from Terry Rooney, but you look at the stats for the Knights this year, and DJ Hicks and Jonathan Griffin are the 2 powers. I mean, they've got 31 of the team home runs, 31 of the 55 team home runs. So it's all them. So they're having to manufacture.
So your issue is more the style of the game.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Yet I would argue that college basketball and the NBA are 2 completely different sports. College basketball is basically, in my opinion, a 3-point shooting contest. There's barely any inside game whatsoever, which is why I think has hurt the progress of big men in the NBA because there's not a lot developed.
3-pointers are just simply too easy.
Too easy.
Basketball.
The NBA is a more skilled game. Yet, it doesn't hurt the college basketball popularity. You mentioned there's lack of stars in college baseball. I would argue there's lack of stars in college basketball. Everybody's gone after a year. I mean, so what's the difference? Why is college baseball getting punished more than college basketball?
Well, number one, it's easier to get star power in basketball because it's such a more individualized
But wouldn't you
game
say, I would argue that
there's 5 players on the court.
Sure, but wouldn't you argue that the coaches in college basketball right now are bigger stars than the actual players in college basketball?
Yeah, the guys who have been around forever. Your Coach K's,
sure.
In the state. Now Billy Donovan with the 2 titles, becoming somewhat of a legend here. Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I think you can say the same thing for baseball now. I mean, when you think of a Florida State, you don't think of the players on the team. You think of a Mike Martin. I think the same thing goes, we're talking about Jay Bergman, we're talking about Terry Rooney. I think the same thing goes kind of there.
I mean, with my argument is college basketball, but I like it more than the NBA. I mean, obviously, from a skills level, there's no comparison, but I think from a execution level of plays and strategy and what I think that's where the NCAA game is better, in my opinion. But getting back to baseball, when you look at the quality of it, I mentioned earlier that's like a high A, low A team. I'm looking at one guy on the UCF staff, Winkler. He's got 13 hit by pitch. He's hit 13 batters this year. I mean, that's a lot of. I mean, some Major League Baseball teams don't hit 13 guys in a season. So, when you're looking at most guys, if you're not throwing 90 miles an hour, you're not pretty much not playing in Major League Baseball. There's only about 5% of guys that are doing that. But when you go to a college game, you see most guys are working in the high 80s. 87 to 90 range. That's where a lot of the good guys are. The really good guys are the guys that you can see, visually look at, oh my God, that guy's going to be a top draft pick. You can see a guy come through and say that guy is going to be a stud. But they really stand out because the guys around them. When you've got to schedule starters, this is my weekend guy, this is my midweek guy, because we know my midweek guy is just not as good. That's where I get into the problem, because that's what you're talking about, the lack of talent.
That's interesting. Well, there you go. That's some interesting thoughts there. College baseball, NCAA tournament, tomorrow selection show. UCF's going to be back in the NCAA tournament. You're going to go, though? You're going to follow them, though, in the NCAA?
Yeah, definitely. There's an outside shot of them hosting a game, which would be pretty cool.
Long shot.
Yeah, it's a very long shot. But that's the last thing I saw was them going to have to play in the same bracket as Georgia Tech, which is not fun.
Yeah, it's a good team. Go to Gainesville. Florida's been thrown out there as well. Maybe even Tallahassee.
Yeah, but they've already beat the Gators one time this year, so that's nice.
Twice.
Twice,
yeah.
My
friend. Twice.
Forgot the second time.
I know Andrew's glued in. FSU, as usual. Another host regional, could be a national seed, so I know Andrew, he'll be watching.
Today will be interesting in the state. You got Florida Vanderbilt playing for the SEC Championship, Virginia Florida State playing for the ACC Championship. So if you're going to tune in to college baseball in the state, today's probably a good day to start.
There we go. We've got a few minutes left now. A couple of quick notes. Let's go. Any UFC fans in here?
No.
Jason, not. Andrew?
Yeah, somewhat.
Andrew, somewhat. I know our producers. Brian is excited. And I'm going to give me a minute. Your recap, your thoughts on UFC 130. Rampage Jackson, I mentioned, wins by unanimous decision in the main event, but the crowd booing at the end there. Not happy. Very disappointing pay-per-view for UFC standards. Would you not agree, Mr. Winterger?
Yeah, no, it was pretty disappointing. All three of the major fights went to a decision. Again, this card 2 weeks ago was supposed to be headlined by that Gray Maynard Frank Yeager rematch that ended up in a draw the first of the year. So that got put on the back burner because Maynard got hurt. So, the UFC fills in with Rampage and Hamill coming in. But, I mean, it went to a decision. I just think Rampage fights to his competition. That fight really reminded me of a couple years ago, UFC 96, when he fought Keith Jardine. He wasn't too happy about fighting Keith Jardine because he wanted a title shot. He didn't feel Jardine was worthy. I don't think he felt Matt Hamill was worthy. And he, his performance showed.
Yeah, outside of him beating up an old man Chuck Liddell, isn't it always disappointing when Rampage fights?
Well, yeah, no, I was looking at that, Andrew. 6 of his last 7 fights actually have been decision. You would think a guy like Rampage is knocking guys out, which he did at the beginning of the year, but his last knockout was Vanderlei Silva back at UFC 100.
That's a while back.
That is a very while back. So, I mean, and he fights in that log jam light heavyweight division where it's just there's so many guys up top. And I guess, Andrew was mentioning earlier here, Dana White saying that, John Bones Jones is going to take on him next. So we'll be interested to see if that happens.
Yeah, that'll be an extra fight. Would you say this is probably the weakest UFC card pay-per-view maybe in 10-20 pay-per-views?
I definitely think so. But then again, it was supposed to be headlined by the light heavyweight the lightweight championship. So, I mean, it was pretty weak, but
the circumstances pretty much said it was not going to be a great one, so the expectation should not be very high.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
absolutely.
Fair enough. See?
That's Brian, our ESPN1080.com MMA insider.
There you go, Andrew.
Brian on the radio, I guess.
MMA insider there. So there you go. Couple minutes, one last, of course. The Indianapolis 500 will follow us right here on ESPN 1080. Used to be the biggest race of the year. Now some say it's not even the biggest race of the day because you got the Coca-Cola 600.
The 100th one, though.
The 100th edition. Are you excited? I mean, you to watch?
No, I don't want. I do have a couple of good friends that live up in Indianapolis that are actually going to be at the race today, so I'm sure they're going to enjoy it. And I was up there on business about a week and a half ago, and they're already setting up, and it's all the talk. But, yeah, no, speed racing is just not my thing.
Yeah, I'll be watching the Red Sox-Tigers game and that Florida State.
Is there anything the Indy 500 can do to make you excited again, like it used to be? Were you not excited as a kid growing up watching Indy 500? Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal?
No.
So I'm in the minority on this one, too?
My father is a pure NASCAR guy. So
that's a big ride. Right. That's why
pure NASCAR guy. So my dad... that's why I watched NASCAR with him. That's the only time I ever watch it.
They could get out of the cars and play football or baseball or basketball. Maybe it'd be a little more entertaining.
Come on now. Indianapolis Speedway, though. It's a great speedway.
It's a gorgeous place. There's a lot of, and they got the Super Bowl coming to Indianapolis this year, too. So it's a pretty big deal in Indianapolis right now.
So you're saying you should move to Indianapolis is what you're saying?
Help them pay the bill on that stadium. That Lucas Oil Field's a massive place. They got a lot of road construction right now. I had a lot of fun driving in between Indianapolis and Purdue a week ago.
I've wondered, if you move to Indianapolis, is the first thing you're issued a Peyton Manning jersey?
I got accused of looking like Peyton Manning at one of the at the
Really?
Buffalo Wild Wings. Somebody thought I was for a second. I'm like, yeah, no.
That's probably a compliment in that city. That's about
yeah.
probably the highest praise you can
You
get.
should have said yes. You probably would have gotten a meal for free.
Yeah, it's true. It would have been nice.
Looking
But
for
yeah,
that
that was like, excuse me, what?
Or he would have been bombarded with lockout questions.
Oh, that's true. Lockout question's never good. All right, we got 2 minutes
true.
left in the show. Let's get some picks in. Last week we debuted as our Sunday's picks. We pick a couple of games from that day and see how we did. Last week we picked the Heat over the Bulls in Game 3. All three of us correct. And we all picked the Rays over the Indians. Or the Marlins, pardon me.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. I misspoke
You're
quickly.
giving away today's picks.
Rays, Indians. We'll start with that. Jason Collette, our MLB and Rays insider. Rays and Indians. Do the Rays win the series today?
Very tough matchup because it's Justin Matheson. I mentioned earlier, ground ball pitchers give him a lot of trouble, but he is one of those guys with that arm angle, throws from the side, lefties hit him well. I think the Rays take this game 4-3 today.
Andrew?
I'm right there with him. I think Matheson will pitch pretty well. Rays will win a low-scoring game.
And I agree with the both of you. Rays win on a walk-off by Benny Zobrist. Their Rays win the series. Bonus pick, college baseball. We talked about it. Florida State, Virginia, ACC title game in beautiful Durham, North Carolina. Andrew, do the Noles take the ACC title?
I'll be a homer and say yes, but if you're a college baseball bettor, don't listen to me. Virginia's got much better pitching. Should win the game.
Jason, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way because I was born in Fredericksburg, Virginia, so I've got to stay with my home state school, even though I know absolutely nothing about what the Cavaliers have this year. But I'm just going to go to be the contrarian here and take Virginia.
I will take Virginia because I think they might be the best team in college baseball. They have the best pitcher in the country, and so we'll go with Virginia.
The correct pick.
So those are our Sunday's picks. Want to thank, of course, Jason Collette, our Rays and MLB insider. He'll have his stuff up soon, right? Hopefully soon on 1080.
Yes, this week. I'm waiting for some good news to come up.
Andrew Melnick, our NBA and Magic insider. Also, you can check out all the work on ESPN1080.com. I'm Eric Lopez, your UCF insider. This has been ESPN1080.com, Insiders.com show here on ESPN 1080, The Team, your Orlando sports leader.